Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Matt Murray, their contract talks have taken all of the attention away from the other important expiring contracts here in Toronto. And no, I'm not talking about Justin Hall and Alex Kerfoot. I'm talking about Joe Bowen and Jim Ralph. Here are the latest updates on the Leafs' legendary commentary crew. What's up, Leafs fans, and welcome back to Leafs Digest. Holy Mackinac, it is true. We've got some new updates on what's going on with Joe Bowen and Jim Ralph, so we'll break that all down throughout the show here today. Wanted to give this important update to Leafs fans because this is a fan-based channel and giving all the news surrounding the team as a whole, not just players, not just management, but everything to do with the Toronto Maple Leafs here. So we'll take you through the timeline, and let's start here. For those who don't know, Joe Bowen and Jim Ralph, last call? Well, yes, so they surprised everyone back in early May after the Leafs had lost in Game 5 to the Florida Panthers in the second round of the 2023 playoffs. When Joe Bowen was signing off at the end of the game, he shocked everyone in Leafs Nation as he walked away saying, "If this is our last call," etc., leaving people wondering, what do you mean last call? How could this be your last call? Well, it appears that Rogers and Bell were leaning towards a situation where they might just pull the plug on having traveling radio broadcasters as a whole and move towards the simulcast route. Both companies looking to cut costs here. They haven't sent either of these guys on the road since COVID-19, back when they were doing it for health and safety reasons, and then it just turned into a financial situation where they didn't send them. Hence why Joe Bowen actually started to get certain calls wrong, where he was saying certain players scored when they didn't. It's not because he just doesn't know what's happening. It's because he couldn't see what was happening. He wasn't in the building. He's watching it on a delayed feed and doesn't know what's going on in real time like he traditionally does. So things started to change for them. Rogers and Bell basically get into a position where they're saying, hey, we're going to pull the plug, and this sent Leafs fans into a frenzy. If you aren't familiar with the coverage of the Toronto Maple Leafs, or if you're someone who doesn't like the Maple Leafs and you're watching from outside, I'm sure you're sitting there saying, who the hell cares? They get enough coverage as it is. Well, I don't think those people understand the way that Leafs fans do. The coverage that the Leafs get itself, yes, there may be a lot of it, but for the most part, it sucks. People outside sit there and say, I hate the Leafs coverage. Guess what? For the most part, Leafs fans also hate the Leafs coverage. We moved to a spot where you get a network that people primarily do not like, they do not listen to. They started to sync up the radio calls onto the TV so that they could hear Jim Ralph and Joe Bowen commentating the game on the radio and just sync it along to what's happening on their TV, because they didn't want to have to listen to the TV coverage anymore. Joe and Jim, they used to be on TV. That got pulled away. Things changed, and Leafs fans said, nah, we're still listening to those guys, but we'll watch the game using your network if that's what you're going to subject us to here. So once that happened, you pull them away from TV. That pissed people off. Then guess what? You're going to pull the plug on them entirely. It's going to piss people off. So Joe Bowen, Jim Ralph's left sitting there, potentially without a job coming up this season. It's not like either of these guys necessarily need it. Joe Bowen is 72 years old. He is a Hall of Famer for sure. He's been with the team since 1982, and him and Jim Ralph have been working together for more than 2 decades now here. But that's kind of the gist of what went on and where Leafs fans were left with after the playoffs ended this season. You sat there going, how could these guys be gone? We didn't even necessarily get a proper farewell. Now, it's not like they're getting the Jeter treatment. You're getting a farewell from every single stadium around the league, but Leafs fans themselves didn't kind of get to appreciate the final year of Joe Bowen and Jim Ralph and that final hurrah of, hey, these guys are going to be done at the end. Let's soak this all in and move on. Now, that is until this report came across my screen. Shout out to David Alter for this one. I saw this pop up. MLSE potentially renewing contracts for these guys. So this comes from a tweet that I saw pop up on my timeline here. David Alter said, multiple reports say Joe Bowen and Jim Ralph are nearing a deal to return to the Leafs radio booth next season, which would be good news in a world of bad lately in sports media. And now, if you don't know what David Alter is talking about, he is talking about a lot of layoffs happening, not just in Canada or Toronto, but in North America in general, in the sports industry. There are a lot of layoffs currently happening. So unfortunate situation, but to hear that these guys could potentially be back in the Leafs radio broadcast booth, I think that that is incredible news for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, before I get into a little bit more about what we heard here and what is going on with the Leafs, I want to take a moment to remind people, if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, I don't know what you're doing. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you get notified every single time we go live here on this channel, or every time more videos like this one. Very important information to Leafs fans, as I know they were dying to hear what was happening with the radio commentary crew for next season. You will get notified every time these videos pop up, so you're not going to want to miss those. So make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. But moving forward, essentially the gist of it is this. After weeks of uncertainty, this is from Lance Hornsby of the Toronto Sun. I looked it up after I went and found this one. He said, after weeks of uncertainty that included Bowen and Ralph delivering some farewell remarks in case the May 12th elimination loss to Florida was the last time the duo was on the mic, a source familiar with the situation has said that a new contract with Sportsnet, TSN, and Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, MLSE, is being worked out. Nothing official is completed, but it is in talks, which is a very, very important thing. So for people who aren't fully familiar with the situation, they take time between TSN, Sportsnet broadcasts. It flips back and forth who has the coverage. A lot of times it's dependent on who's got the TV coverage that night, but then otherwise for the radio it just cycles through. So that's why TSN and Sportsnet are working out deals for these guys. They have to kind of come together in this one and make a deal for both of them. Now, if you don't know, within MLSE, they're owned by Rogers and Bell. Well, TSN and Sportsnet are owned by one or the other. TSN, obviously, on Bell, Sportsnet with Rogers. They're both separate, but then their parent companies, the ones that own them, own the Maple Leafs together. So there is a little bit of a coming together there from those two parties. And although they don't necessarily always see eye to eye as far as Toronto sports teams go, they've got a ton of money. And over the past few years, they've moved away from the on-field, on-ice, on-court operations and mostly let the teams and their management groups run things themselves. So now when it comes to off-ice stuff, that's when it's going to come down to them more than anything, and this is a massive one for Leafs fans because you got to hope that you're going to get some type of joy coming to your broadcast for the next season, or some type of opportunity at the least to kind of have a farewell opportunity with them. We don't go up and shake their hands and give them standing ovations or anything like that. But that being said, there's no opportunity to recognize them. You know that the Maple Leafs in their arena would have given them some recognition in the stands, would have given a Leafs fans an opportunity to wave and clap and say goodbye to them as things ended. And if you are a Leafs fan, you do understand that there's this. No matter how the team plays, the ups, the downs, whether it's within a season, within a game, or if it's been over the course of decades for people, dating back to when Joe Bowen was with the Leafs back in the 80s, you've seen some terrible hockey, you've seen some incredible hockey, terrible coaches, terrible GMs, great coaches, great GMs. We've seen it all here in Toronto, but the one constant has been the voice delivering the games to you. And that's something people could always count on, because getting through 82 games of a regular season now can be somewhat painful with this team. You're going to sit there and say, hey, only the playoffs matter. And then you go online and every single other person online tells you only the playoffs matter. That's great. So then it makes it hard to get yourself to a point where you can enjoy every single individual game as it goes along. But Joe Bowen and Jim Ralph were two guys that definitely helped that happen. They were guys who made you invest in every single game because the emotion that they put through the screen, the passion that they have, how much they care about the Leafs, and how much they make that known to the people who are viewing or listening to their content on a nightly basis. So shout out to Joe Bowen and Jim Ralph. I really hope that these contracts are able to get done, not only for them, for an opportunity for them to say goodbye, even if it is for one more year, but also for Leafs fans to have another opportunity to enjoy that before they finally retire or move on with their careers, and give Leafs fans as well an opportunity to say goodbye to them. So MLSE, Rogers, Bell, do the right thing here. Bring these guys back at least one more season and let us know when it's the last one so that they have the opportunity to give a proper goodbye to those two. Leafs fans, thank you guys so much for tuning in here today. Not your traditional player, coach, GM updates that were given here on this channel, but I felt like this was an important one. I did pop up on my timeline and I thought, hey, you know what? This is something that maybe not everyone is on Twitter and not everyone's getting this news. Maybe not everyone's getting the newspaper delivered to their house in the morning. So at some way or another, the people who are following this Leafs Digest channel should be able to find out this news. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know your thoughts on this one. Maybe if you guys go off in the comments, go crazy in the comments, someone at one of those networks will catch wind of this, will see what's going on and see how badly people want them back here, and they will push to make that happen. So let us know in the comments how much you love those guys, how much it means to you. I appreciate you tuning in here today. And as well, before we head off, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications on this channel here. Greatly appreciate it. But Leafs fans, more news, more rumors, more trade talk, all coming up here on this Leafs Digest channel. Keep believing.